Your friend's trying to understand what if the unified field's trying to tell me something. And you are though. First of all, I mean, I sort of. We could deal with what's in the paper today and the psychology. What we suspect is the psychology of people reading it. Um, which of course is actually the main concern all the time. It's how people are perceiving what's in their papers and TV. But since there's some pain, which would indicate we're not in the sort of like low frequency or something, um, it's a better way to look at it. We don't know. It shouldn't have been on the camera to report this more demented news out of our nation's like fraternity system. The fraternities should be shut down. By the way, I mean they just take a cancer on the society, and they produce individuals with they specialize in producing like men of very little character. Is what it is. And it's unlike they do. I mean, they sort of like they sort of what one if that's part of university education is the young men like belong to these like fraternities, right? Where it's bad enough the universities aren't teaching anybody anything, but there are also like organizations that like the students belong to that build individuals with very poor character. But that's not our main topic. But the latest was a sick. It's not a sick irony because it's not meant to be ironic. That I'm sure it's personal. They have a one of their sort of games they play like when they should be studying, but instead like do these sort of like games for like people who can't hold their liquor or whatever. And that there's a game where you have to carry like a sack of rocks on your head or something, and then something like that, and then the name of the game is the glass ceiling. Glass ceilings. It's a reference to the term is actually the term means is it's in corporations. It's well known that women are at a disadvantage to men in a variety of ways, but just the most basic, like not being able to, they can only move up so high in the organization as far as what position they have, and even if those positions are available, their salaries are incredibly much lower than men. There's a corporations is one place where like women are not equal to men in a way that's not the corporations aren't interested in like catching up with the rest of society. So the term for not being able to for being held down with regard to like what you can earn or what positions you can have in corporations for women, it is the term is the glass ceiling. So it turns out there's actually there's a drinking game in our fraternities that involves like carrying rocks on your head or something called the glass ceiling. And certainly it's named after the term for the way in which women are held down in corporations, which these people, these young men of bad character who join fraternities, like that's a path for them is to go into corporate life. So they've named one of their games the glass ceiling. These are people who don't have respect for women anyway, but I mean they don't. I mean the amount of like date rapes and like crimes against women and things that take place, like but on top of it, the people are like immature, bad character. But that isn't why you. I mean, there's something going on in the unified field where I'm like in pain or whatever, and it may be I don't want to be in pain, but I mean, we could talk about the article today. There are always articles like this. It's an article in the Wall Street Journal, but what's important to know is what this does is what it's the people what it does the psychology of the people reading it and what they think it means. So, for example, like it's not the persons like me who read all the different papers, you see this, well, geez, this isn't really much news. I mean, this isn't this article. Like, why is this even in here? Who cares? But no. You see how they're positioning things. Like, but you have to. It's the psychology of the readers that's important. What it is they had the government was going to shut down again over these kind of people in our Congress making a deal over the budget, but the budget is not, that really isn't like a big. I mean, it's not something that the government should be shut down because the two parties are intractable on something like that. but the chairman of the budget committee, okay, is named Paul Ryan, and he sort of like created, he's the sort of, because he's the head of the budget committee, they created a deal where, like, they won't shut down the government, they'll pass a budget, but the casualties of the deal are like it was politically impossible to put in the extension of unemployment insurance for people who are still unemployed because of the economy. The deal included like increasing worker compensation to pensions. Didn't say any. They're still taking away 84 million people's food stamps, but we don't know if that came up. But the point is, like, this was a deal that they made over the budget in which they couldn't even get in things to like really help people. But it's certainly this character like Paul Ryan. He's just head of the budget committee, so that's why he was in the center of this debate they were having. But it's being reported like it's big news, and then you see how in the morning paper, like this, it's a giant headline. Ryan has much writing on the deal, and there's a big picture of him, and it says House Budget Chairman Paul Ryan says divided government. I mean, it's all about this person, Paul Ryan, who's like an inconsequential part of our Congress, but if you read this, it doesn't indicate any of the harm that's going to come to poor people from the way in which the deal went down. But like it says things that it's indicating, and all of the coverage on this guy is indicating that the fact that he, as budget chairman, had to like bridge work out the compromise between the two parties, that this somehow makes him a viable candidate for president. What do you think, chairman of the budget committee? And this kind, no, but like this is in the paper, and this is a paper read by partly that portion of it. There's a portion of people in our society who vote Republican because it's their class identification is like they make a big salary. I mean, there isn't much the Republican Party is doing for like wealthy people or anything. I mean, it isn't. I mean, it's not doing anything that would benefit the investor class. It's not doing anything. But there are people whose identity as a Republican just involves the sort of class identification. And so this looks like this guy is going to be considered like, a potential presidential candidate. And the article's written that way. But the way it's written, it's interesting how it's written as though it's like business dialogue. Like, right, Ryan said, he acknowledged, is this a perfect deal? Well, far from it, but we have a deal. I mean, like they're describing it like they were negotiating over some like a business deal, but that's the psychology of the readers. But to have this big an article about something like that, it would. But it does say the Heritage Action, which is the political arm of the Heritage Foundation. It's like an institute that like has people that, people with master's degrees in economics who do studies on things like why it's okay to take away people's food stamps. But they refer to Mr. Ryan's rise to the national stage. I mean, he'd rise to the national stage at the head of some jerk who's the chairman of the budget committee and who worked out a deal between Congress people that couldn't even, that basically like harms the poor and workers, but like doesn't help anybody, and all it did was prevent the government from being shut down again because they're wanting to. We don't even know why they can't come to agreement on anything. But question is, does this do anything for his stature on the national stage? I never heard of this guy really before this, but now, big article. He could be a presidential candidate. I mean, the country's not doing too well when like this kind of thing is going on.